Hi everyone, and say hi to my new old bike over there. I said new because it's my new bike. I just bought it recently. And I said old because I'm not the first owner of this bike. God knows how many people owned it before me. That's exactly why I'm talking about buying things secondhand in this video. I'm going to be sharing my reasons to do so. And as usually, the nerdy side of me made a whole list of reasons. And of course, some reasons are more important than others. And I'm gonna start obviously with more important reasons first and then come up to the least important one. But please bear with me until the end of the video, because maybe some of those least important reasons will be more meaningful to you. And maybe they will be the reasons you never thought about, and they might change your mind. Let's start with my personal two most important reasons to buy certain things secondhand. It's being eco-friendly and being budget-friendly. I will go into those reasons in detail so you will understand what exactly drives me personally. And also I want to make a short disclaimer. Not everything I own and buy is always secondhand, but lots of things are. Another important disclaimer that I want to make is that I don't personally believe that everyone should go crazy on secondhand, or people should be buying only secondhand, or people should be following my personal reasons, because I think that we're all different and you better find something that suits your particular lifestyle, your life principles, and so on. So everything I say here is not to be part of the competition who is more eco-friendly or less. It's just my personal lifestyle that suits me, that makes me happy. And if something what I mentioned you don't understand or don't get, just stick to your own life. That's more important than being a zombie that follows something mindlessly. Being sustainable. As you can guess, judging from the name of this channel, it's really important for me to see in what areas of my life I can be more sustainable and still enjoy my life. Of course, we all have joy of buying something new, just instead of looking it in some thrift stores or secondhand online markets, just go, get it and enjoy it. But I also understand the amount of things we buy, and I talked a lot about this in my previous videos. The amount of stuff we produce, the amount of stuff we buy, especially here in North America. I can tell you the individual here buys more items than any other individual in any other country in the world. So the amount of stuff we buy is not really going anywhere. Most of the stuff ends up in the landfill. Most of the stuff pollutes the planet, pollutes the nature. And me personally, because I do love nature, you see, I'm trying to surround myself with nature every possible moment. I don't want to contribute to polluting to more garbage, more landfill and more waste. So when I was learning things about sustainability, I realized that one of the ways to help, deter the pollution, help to kind of lower the pollution, is actually extending the life cycle of things. So for example, when I buy things, I try to buy things that I'm going to use longer. It's not something that you're just going to use once and then it's going to be sent to trash. But another way how I can extend the life cycle of things is actually using things that were pre-owned by somebody. Imagine somebody bought something and realized this person doesn't need this thing. It's stupid to just stick to the thing because like, oh my God, now I have to stick to it because I don't want to end the life cycle of that thing. It will be much more reasonable for us to kind of give this thing another life in somebody else's home. Like if I buy a camera and I realize I don't want to do any more photos with this camera. When I resell it, somebody else going to use this camera, and maybe this camera will survive for a few more years instead of sitting on my shelf or being sent to the garbage at some point. So for me personally, by actively seeking things that were pre-owned, that somebody else owned before me, it's actually my way to contribute to less pollution. Anyway, you understand what I mean. Another sustainable reason to buy things secondhand, for me, it's like clothing items. For example, starting this year as well as last year, I'm trying to buy things that are ethically made, sustainable, and so on. But most of these things are super expensive. So for me personally, it's not possible financially to buy things new and sustainable. So either I have to compromise the sustainability or I have to compromise the newness. So I personally chose to save money on buying secondhand and reinvesting that leftover of money into something more sustainable, instead of saying like, oh, I can't afford the sustainable items and just buy, let's say, a fast fashion. So that's my personal reason. I understand in different circumstances it might not work, but think of it. By, let's say, not buying a new car, but buying a secondhand car, you save yourself 30% or sometimes 50% of the price. And this 30% or 50%, sometimes you can reinvest into better cause. And since I mentioned budget friendliness, let's talk about this thing as well. When I was researching why people even buy things secondhand, what are the other people's reasons, I read lots of comments where people were saying like, oh, apart from being broke, I don't see no reason to buy secondhand because it's actually just, I don't know, sad way to live your life. If I can afford something, why I wouldn't just buy it? And for me, it's interesting how people think that buying secondhand, it's only broke people do, or buying secondhand, it's like kind of diminishing your happiness from life. But in reality, every time I buy something, I'm thinking how many hours of my work I put into buying these items. And basically, when I'm buying a new bicycle, I can either spend this amount of hours to work to actually get this bicycle, or I can spend this amount of hours. And instead of spending all my life in the office working, trying to chase, I don't know, the American dream or whatever other people chasing, I actually choose to do less paid work, to do more unpaid work. So it's not about not working. For me, it's more about spending my life on things I love, even if those things are not paid. And the only way how I can afford something like that, by looking for any possible way to diminish my cost of life, to diminish my expenses. That's exactly the reason when I buy sport gear or new car, I would not buy a new one because I'm gonna be spending 30% or 50% less money, the money that I would someday have to spend somewhere working and earning. But the crazy part, like when I quit my corporate job, I was obviously forced to think more about my expenses. I just realized that I can have the same lifestyle I had before by earning less, doing more meaningful stuff in my life, and still being able to afford things. Of course, there was a long process. It was like long transition. Not immediately after I quit my job, I could afford anything I could. Me personally, it took almost 10 years to build up my new lifestyle. But the only reason I can do it when I cut my cost everywhere I can. Again, it doesn't mean that I don't buy expensive things. For example, if I buy certain photography gear or things that are meaningful for me and for my job or for my personal hobbies, I would buy the more expensive model, the more professional model, but I would buy it secondhand. And that's another reason how I would afford it. Normally, I would never afford to buy a new fancy camera or a fancy lens, but when I buy secondhand lens, I can afford it. So instead of going with the new crappy film gear, I actually buy secondhand and less crappy gear. And when we talk about this particular bike, the new bike like that would cost like $500. This bike is 3 or 4 or 5 years old. It wasn't really used up that much. I mean, it doesn't look like new, but it does the job, does the trick. And I paid $100 for it. So instead of brand new $500, I got the same bike. I mean, older model, but the bikes don't evolve that fast, for $100. And here I probably have to talk about a very important issue. I know that some people don't like to buy things secondhand because they think like, yeah, I'm gonna save some money, but then I'm gonna get this old crappy something. But the truth is that, especially here in North America, you can buy so many things that look brand new, almost brand new, or they are in mint condition, or they're just refurbished items, or they're open box items that gonna save you lots of money. They are slightly used. You're not gonna even see the difference. After a few months you're using this item yourself, it's going to look just the same, And you can buy almost brand new items for the same price. Let me give an example with the cars. Somebody in my other video left a comment that, oh my God, you just never bought a new car. That's why you're saying that old cars are fine. I didn't mean to buy a 15 years old car and have this crappy car if you can afford a new one. But even if you go online and compare the price of new car, let's say the year 2020, the new car will be almost $30,000. The same car, year 2020, in the secondhand market will cost you $20,000. You just easily save $10,000 just by accepting the car that somebody have driven before you for a while. Not much for a while because it's the same year. Do you understand it? So I think the biggest problem is people don't buying things secondhand just because they don't really understand that secondhand doesn't mean old, crappy, broken, or something wrong with it. I'm planning to make another video talking where exactly to buy things secondhand, so it's actually safe, and also some tips how to buy, for example, cars that are not risky to buy if they're used. So make sure you click on that bell, you don't miss that video. Let me actually read you some statistics. What type of items lose the most money when you buy new new versus like slightly used. Exercise and music equipment, you can save from 50 to 75% by buying secondhand. Books, consumer electronics, cars. If you buy a 3-year-old car, you're gonna save 50% of price. Designer clothing, especially the gently used. Gift cards. Did you know that you can also buy used gift cards? Used doesn't mean it's empty. It means that somebody got it as a gift, but they don't need it, so they are ready to resell it for small amount of price. So if you are actually buying gift cards, find the websites where they sell secondhand gift cards. Also furniture and any tools for home or construction or anything. Most of these items you shouldn't be buying new unless you want to spend extra 30% on them. To be honest, money and sustainability aren't my only reasons to buy things secondhand. I have way more other reasons, and let me share you some of those. One of the biggest reasons for me why I love things secondhand, because they give you more flexibility in different ways. Let me give you, for example. The easiest example is your phone. For the last, I don't know how many years, I only bought secondhand phones. I would usually choose something that's in mint condition or like new. So this thing can last longer and not break down. But I would probably save $200, $300, $400 like that. And also, I don't need to be attached to any mobile company. I don't have any contract. You know, especially here in America, lots of people have 2-year contracts. So yeah, they think they're getting their phone for free or almost for free. But if you actually calculate all the money that you are paying together with this contract, you're probably overspending. Plus, you are a little bit tight. You won't be able to cancel your contract. You won't be able to switch to another company. Another thing that sometimes we buy things that are a little bit more expensive because we get in certain places like zero down payment, or we get nice offers from the banks in terms of loans. But I personally don't take loans to buy any electronics or, I don't know, any clothing item or anything. Actually, for the last 10 years, I didn't own any money to any banks. So for me, I better save. And because I can't afford the new one, I just buy secondhand. Phones are one example. There are also other reasons. For example, for me, it's flexibility and freedom to replace an item. I understand now it will not probably sound very sustainable, like why would you replace things? You have to stick to them and so on. But things happen. Sometimes it happens that you buy something and you change your mind. You realize you don't need this thing, or you realize you need another item. Or especially when it comes to furniture, if you move to another place, you realize that this particular set of furniture I had before, it just doesn't fit in your new place. So by buying things first place secondhand, I feel more freedom that if I don't need the item, I just resell it. And I like this freedom. I like this flexibility. The reason why I said this idea might not sound very sustainable to some people, because people will like, no, that promotes like unnecessary buying things, selling things, and stuff like that. I'm not saying about mindlessly buying furniture, I don't know, and swapping my dining table every month. I'm saying about being more realistic, because for some certain lifestyles, like my personal lifestyle, I moved a lot in the last 10 years. I don't know how many apartments and houses and even countries and cities I've changed. So I move a lot. So for me, it just makes sense this way. And also I know myself that if I bought something new and then later on I realized I don't need this item, I will feel so much guilt that I'm just wasting money. I'm feeling so much guilt that I bought this item and now I have to deal with it. Should I keep it? Should I keep using it? Or should I exchange it? But when I get things secondhand, it just eases my mind. I just don't have this guilt anymore, because I know for how much I bought this item, I know that I can probably sell it for the same price. Sometimes buying things secondhand can actually be almost a free rent. So you use these things completely for free. Let me give you some examples, but first let me change my location. So what exactly do I mean by free rent? Certain things, when they are used, especially when you only need to use them for a short period of time, they don't really age that much. So, you know, after being used, they don't lose their properties. So you can actually buy things secondhand, use it for a while, and then resell it. For example, let's say you decided to renovate your house and you need certain tools. Instead of going to the store and buying completely new tools, you can actually buy them secondhand, do your house renovation or whatever you need to do. And after that, you don't feel like keeping that amount of tools, just resell them. Any construction or any like renovation home tools are the best bought and resold secondhand. And probably you will actually resell it for almost the same money you bought it for. So you just saved yourself money. It's just a free rental of tools. The same comes to books. Okay, books are the tricky one. I will make another disclaimer later on, but let me first explain. If you are somebody who reads a lot of books, I don't talk about people who read one book a month, but if you read like several books a week, you're not financially capable to buy all these books. I mean, some people are, but some people not. If you buy secondhand books, especially certain books that are in general expensive, you can save yourself money. And if you are a person like a minimalist like me, I don't keep any books at home. I don't have a need to collect books. After reselling them later on, I can actually save myself money and basically read that book for free. I said the books are tricky because some people don't like the secondhand books market because they say, oh, this way we don't support the authors, this way we don't support the, the book industry and stuff like this. I understand it's tricky and it's kind of has like two sides of it. So obviously if you follow this advice of mine, just be mindful like what are the ways you can support authors. Me personally, I read lots of books from library because I read a lot and I can't afford buying everything I read. So what I did, for example, a couple of times, those particular authors that had Patreon pages, I would go and support them via Patreon or if they have any donation links or anything like that. Of course, it's not completely the same as buying their book because that's how their ratings and sale numbers grow. But obviously what I believe there will be still other people buying new books, because some people like to collect books. And also you don't need to do it with all the books, you can do it with more expensive books. For example, last year I was buying this book. The new one was like $60 or $80 because it's like a manual. I bought it for, $20 as secondhand, and then as soon as I don't need it, I will resell it and get my money back. Other things when you can also practice this free rent thing is usually buying sport equipment. For example, you decided to go into biking, you just buy a secondhand bike. If you decide a few months later you don't want this particular bike, you want some other bike, or you don't want to be biking anymore, you just resell it. Basically, you rented it for free. Which brings me to the next point, that sometimes you can use buying second-hand things as test driving certain things. For me personally, it especially works with two categories. One is like sport equipment, and also for me it works with some fancy kitchen appliances. For example, some time ago I decided that, I want to be juicing. I don't know if the juicing will stick. You know how it works with all these appliances. You buy it, you get super excited in the beginning, you use it for the first month, and then it just sits on the shelf. So buying a new item, especially something as expensive as a juicer, for me it's not very practical. I better buy a used one, test it out, see if it works for me, see if I'm gonna stick to juicing. And if later on, let's say like half a year later, I understand that I'm super crazy about juicing every other day, maybe I can buy something better and just resell that one. But the cool thing is that while using this particular item, I would have a chance to test drive it and understand what exactly I need. But I'm sure you can remember at least one example when you started some sort of hobby or activity, you bought something and then later on you realized that you need a slightly different thing, different model or something different. So buying secondhand actually saves you money and headache because you can buy something simple and cheap, test drive it, and then decide. And also the cool thing, there are so many people who buy things and then decide they don't want to use it anymore. So if you're really like chasing those items on Craigslist, on other like, secondhand webs, online like, platforms, you can actually find almost brand new things. You know how many almost brand new bikes you can buy on Craigslist instead of paying the full price? The same with juicers and other things. Another example is, for example, surfing. When people start surfing, first they rent boards because they take lessons, and then after a while they decide, I need my own surfboards. But trust me, not a single surfer who only started surfing for a few like weeks or months actually knows what exactly he needs. And I was a beginner surfer myself. I bought boards, and then now when I look at these boards, I'm like, oh my God, why did I even buy that shit? You don't know much about these sports. And also in certain sports like surfing, you actually progress with different speed compared to other people. Some people will progress faster, so they don't need to buy a new board because after a few months they will realize, oh my God, I grew up from this board. I need to, buy another one, like the next level board, but now I'm stuck with this expensive new surfboard, so I'm gonna just lose money reselling, or I'm just gonna keep it. Or some people, they buy boards because they think like, soon I'm gonna progress this much. That's why I kind of buy the board that I'm not ready for yet, but I'm gonna be ready in the month, but then it doesn't happen, and you just again wasting money on buying new board that doesn't fit your skills. So in those areas, like, I personally almost never buy new things because it's just not practical. Actually, I just realized, also mention in the comments what are your favorite categories in terms of buying secondhand, and maybe also what are your reasons not to buy secondhand. I know there are different reasons for different people, so it's kind of interesting to know what's your reason not to do so. Another interesting reason to buy secondhand, it's going to be a weird one, but I still have to mention it. Sometimes buying things secondhand can help you with quality control. Especially when you buy some clothing items, you can actually see how this item will age, and also how good it goes through laundry. I don't know about you, but it did happen to me. When you buy something, you wash it, and then it shrinks, or it loses color, or it loses shape, or something else happens. Or some items, after like 2, 3, 4 laundries, they just look ugly. They don't look as new. So for me, sometimes it's a funny way to see how the item gonna look after a few times it's used, is to see this item in the second hand. Obviously, it's not the main reason, as I said, but think of it. It's a good reason, actually. Getting a better variety. That's another reason why I personally like secondhand, especially when it comes to my wardrobe, like clothing items. Actually, other categories as well. I will give you a few examples later. When you go to the store to buy new outfits, you only see what's present for this year collection, and maybe something is on sale from previous collection. But that's it. You're limited to what is in trend now. But going to the thrift store, like buying clothes secondhand, you are unlimited. You are like have unkept, potential what things you can buy. And for me personally, I don't like to follow current trends. I prefer to have my unique and authentic style in terms of how I dress. And although I might not look like a very dressed person, I still prefer to express myself certain way through how I dress. And for me, I find more variety in a thrift store than in the regular store. Obviously, now we have online stores, so we have more like options. But for me personally, because I prefer not to go to fast fashion, I try to buy mostly sustainable, ethical brands. I'm super limited, but because when I go secondhand, I can buy anything what's there. I'm not as limited as when I'm limited when I buy new items. But actually, clothing items are not the only way where you get variety. For example, if you buy cars or sports equipment or other things, sometimes the newest model is not always the best. If you go to all those forums and communities, start doing your research, and people will say like, oh, not buy this year car, buy previous year, or like don't buy this year's model of this bike or skate or surfboard or whatever else, like buy previous year model. So when you enter the secondhand market, you can actually choose between different models, and maybe certain models have better things for you specifically. And I think in general, like buying things secondhand, thrifting things, thrifting your furniture, thrifting your clothing items, it actually helps you to express your creativity. I don't know why, but I don't like to be dressed like everyone else. I want to have my own style. As well as when I can buy some old furniture and I can spend time repainting it, changing it, I don't know, doing makeover. And I actually love lots of videos on YouTube where people do this crazy like old furniture makeovers. You can create such unique styles, something that fits your personal, tastes and stuff. And I think it's a cool way to express yourself and to be creative. So for me personally, I like to follow bloggers. They do crazy thrifting, and especially when they remake these clothes into something else, or watching bloggers who do like furniture makeovers. It helps me to also become more creative, find new ways to upgrade things. And I can also use those tips not only when I buy something secondhand, but I can also apply those tips to things that I already own. For example, for my room, I needed to buy this little couch, and I was looking into different options, and then I found it secondhand. It was, I think, $20 or something like that, and I spent another $20 on paint. I completely repainted it. It looks cool. And I even have some people asking me, oh, where did you buy it? Craigslist. And one more reason to buy things secondhand. Maybe it's not the most rational and logical reason, but I don't know, somehow it's important for me. There is a lot of joy finding the perfect item to yourself. I don't know if you know what I mean, but then you go to the thrift store and you're hunting. You have this anticipation. You're like hunting for this perfect item, and then you find it and you're like, oh my God, that's it. That's the one. And I also noticed that things that I thrift, if I like truly like look for them, hunt for them, wait for them to appear and show up so I can finally buy them, I value those things more. I love them more. They bring me more joy, and I tend to keep those things longer. And speaking of creativity and joy, for example, this particular, I don't know, vest, I bought it in secondhand in Indonesia. And I remember when I found it, I paid like, I don't know, $5, $7 for it, maybe less, I don't remember anymore. And I have this thing for so many years and I love it so much. And if I had to downgrade my wardrobe to, I don't know, like 10 items, this thing would definitely stay. So for me, there is something unique about thrifting items. I don't know, if you put your soul in it, you really enjoy the item. You actually have this thing that Marie Kondo calls like spark joy. You truly have it. I have another example, like I'm a big tea lover, so I really love tea. I drink more tea than you can actually imagine. For my tea collection, I hunt for special teacups because tea tastes different in different cups, depends on the form and the material. So for a long time, I was hunting for vintage porcelain cup, you know, like, and I finally found, I was looking for this cup for months on Etsy. I would go through all the catalogs and I was like, no, that's not it. And then finally I found this cup. Some of you might think like it's old ass, ugly, old lady cup. I don't know, I don't care, but you can't even imagine how much joy this cup gives me. It's my only big teacup I use. And this cup is so precious to me that just buying this particular cup just made my life so much better. I don't know, every time I look at it, I still like 1 year or 1.5 years later, I'm like, oh my God, you're still the most beautiful cup I ever owned. Sounds stupid, but you have to understand these little things actually make your life happy. Not just owning something because it's a new, not because thinking like, oh, it's something I can afford. Those things, yeah, they make you joy for a second, but then it just disappears. But if you truly find the right item, and I don't know why, but for me, finding item in the thrift stores just makes it more right item than usual. Makes my life a little bit more happy. I don't know. Oh, almost forgot another reason. Actually, buying secondhand sometimes teaches me anti-consumerism. Obviously, I see some examples on YouTube when people go crazy thrift shopping and they buy so much stuff just because it's more affordable. I don't mean that. But for me personally, when I decide to buy something, let's say I decided to buy this bike. If I want to buy a new bike, I can just go online, order it, pay for it online, and it will be shipped to my house. But when I buy it secondhand, I actually have to hunt for it. I have to look for it. I have to look through different resources. I have to go check on it. I have to sometimes physically give somebody cash. It actually creates a more meaningful process. First of all, the time while I'm looking for this thing makes me really understand, do I really need this thing? How much I'm ready to pay for it? When I see this bike physically, like especially when it's a used thing, you kind of judge the money you pay for it differently. And it teaches me to buy only things I truly need. Because for me personally, sometimes I find some things like on Craigslist and I'm like, oh, that's a cool thing, maybe I should get it. And then I look at the ad and then I have to drive for 15 or 20 minutes just to have a look at it. And I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna get it. But of course, if I could have ordered this thing online, I might have bought it. So for some reason, for me, secondhand is a way to be more mindful about what I buy. And I guess that's it for today. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite reason to buy secondhand, or maybe there are reasons I didn't mention in this video. And also see you in my next videos. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe because I'm doing other videos on anti-consumerism, minimalism, eco-friendly habits, and in general how to be sustainable, but don't be fanatically sustainable, but kind of to be reasonably sustainable and still enjoy your life. And other things, eco-conscious, life-conscious, mind-conscious, and so on. See you in my next video.